We'll talk with a gentleman whose contribution to the fair is very much in evidence. His dominant role was inevitable, for he is a master showman, the man who created the world's largest tourist attraction, in itself a World's Fair, Disneyland. Of course, that man is Mr. Walt Disney. It's a real pleasure, sir, to talk with you.
Well, nice to talk to you, Dick.
Under the banner of WED Enterprises, which incidentally stands for Walter Elias Disney, Mr. Disney has produced 4 major exhibits at the fair for Ford Motor Company, General Electric, and the state of Illinois. WED also designed a 4th exhibit, Pepsi-Cola, which was constructed and will be operated by Walt Disney Productions. What is WED Enterprises, Mr. Disney? Is this the same group of talented people that designed Disneyland?
Well, WED is, you might call it my backyard laboratory, my workshop away from work. It served a purpose in that some of the things I was planning, like for Disneyland, for example, it was pretty hard for the banking mind to go with it. I had to go ahead on my own and develop it to a point where that they could begin to comprehend what I had in mind. So it's been true with a lot of things in our history here that we've been doing something that's a little bit out of the run of things, and it's pretty hard to sell people on what you have in your mind. So you have to go ahead and develop it. And that's what I've been doing with WED. I can do things at WED without asking anybody, even my wife. She's hard to sell lots of times.
Like space-age development, many of your contributions have introduced new words to our vocabulary. Your most recent is audio animatronic. I hope I'm pronouncing
That's
that
right. It's, sound, animation through electronics. It's opened a whole new door for us. We can program whole shows on a tape. This little tape sends signals, and the little figures go to work, and they sing and act and move according to the impulse that comes from the tape. And this has all been possible because of this big drive that we've had on the space age development, the electronic age.
You're using audio animatronics for all 4 exhibits, like we mentioned before. What are some of the specific effects of each exhibit? How would you like each one to affect fair visitors?
They all tie in with the theme of the World's Fair. It's progress. Like the General Electric show, for example, we have what we call the Carrousel of Progress. Now, it's a theater that revolves. The people revolve around 6 stages. And on each one of these stages are my audio animatronic figures that enact a little part of the whole story. And we start with the pre-electrical age. We had coal lamps and all that, coal oil lamps. And we go up to early electrical, mid-electric, and then up to today and what you can do with electricity in your home. But the audience itself revolves around these fixed stages. And it's called the Carousel Theater of Progress. And I want to tell you about my Pepsi-Cola show. This took a lot of imagineering, too. It's a tribute to the children of the world. And it's a little fantasy where you take a trip around the world of children in a boat. And you visit all the different countries with all the different children of these countries in their costumes, and then a lot of toy-like figures to represent other things. And these little figures dance and sing, and finally end up with a big finale, which is like the finale in any musical, where all the children from these other lands that you visited are all together in one, all singing in unison, and it's a big, spectacular finish. So it's called It's a Small World. With the Ford exhibit, we take them in a Ford product, and they ride back in time. And they go back to the primeval days with the big giant lizards, dinosaurs and brontosauruses and stegosauruses and all of that. And they're all animated and moving, very lifelike. They move from that up to the early age of man. Then we show how man was learning to better his way of life, where he learned how to use fire, where he learned to build weapons. And you'll meet for the first time the fellow who invented the wheel. He's a caveman. He's got this wheel, and he's trying to sell it to his neighbors, and he's having an awful hard time. They don't believe the darn thing's worth anything, Then we go into the fantasy of the world of tomorrow. In the Ford product, you ride right through, more or less like a skyway. And then we come back to today, and the Ford has a wonderful show of their product today and how it's designed and all of that. I think the Ford exhibit's going to be one of the top exhibits at the fair.
And then let's see, there's one other.
Oh, my Lincoln? I think that people are going to be surprised. how lifelike this Abraham Lincoln is going to be when they're going to sit in there and listen to this great man who gives a speech on liberty. And these are the speeches taken from Abraham Lincoln's own writings and speeches, and he's in a very dignified setting, and the audience is conditioned, and then they're presented to the president, and he stands up and addresses this audience. Well, by the way, on the Lincoln figure, we've done considerable research so that we really could create a lifelike impression of Lincoln. We're fortunate in being able to secure a life mask that was made of Lincoln. It was made in about 1860, I think. And it gave us a chance to know the contour of his face and all of that. And then by research, we found all of his mannerisms. We selected a voice that fit the closest to what was described as Lincoln's voice, and also how he used to start the speech. He'd started rather high, then as he got into his speech, he would come down and modulate his voice a little more carefully. He was a fellow who could get rather emotional in the middle of a speech, too. So we've done everything we can to create the most lifelike image of Lincoln, more so than I think any actor could ever do. It's a big fair. I think people are going to be surprised. It's really an exciting thing. I was there just a few weeks ago. It's going to be the biggest fair, I think, yet, without a doubt.
The New York World's Fair sounds like an experience of a lifetime, and I'm sure that no one who goes there is likely to forget it. Thank you so much, Walt Disney, for being our guest.
Thank you, Dick.
This is Dick Strout with World's Fair Report, returning you to our main studios.